Hello once again, I'm Cosmic, and welcome to Sevastopol Space Station in survival horror game Alien Isolation. The game itself was developed by Total War series developer Creative Assembly and published by Sega. Alien Isolation was looked upon prior to release with both skepticism and caution, after many people had been at best disappointed and at worst blatantly ripped off by Gearbox's Colonial Marines. It was hoped that Isolation would redeem the franchise in the video game world and give us the game that the fans of the films have always dreamed about since Ridley Scott's original Alien film. The game tells the story of Ellen Ripley's daughter, Amanda, some years after her mother went missing. Amanda is invited by Weyland-Yutani Corporation to travel with a team to rival company Seegson's Sevastopol station to collect the now recovered black box of Nostromo, her mother's missing vessel. Amanda of course agrees, as she's been searching for her mother for many years and she wants closure once and for all. Upon arriving at the space station, Ripley the Younger finds that the station is falling apart and sets off to find out what happened and ultimately get what she came for, the black box. As you traverse the soon-to-be derelict space station, you'll come across computer terminals and audio logs which all hold information about what's going on, the crew and Seegson the company. It is so refreshing to have a smaller company at the centerfold instead of the tried and tested Weyland-Yutani Corporation, which at this point has been done to death. Not only do you have a smaller company with different ideals and objectives, but you also have the inclusion of new people, new ideas, and it's just so good for the universe as a whole, as building the canon and such forth. While it is somewhat a different setting, it remains very familiar and still feels really authentic. You can really feel Seegson's executives panic over bigger corporations, newer technology and bigger resources. You can see the people's day-to-day struggles with their jobs, and the whole thing makes the world come to life. The plot of the game is really well told and well paced throughout. The objectives, however, are little more than go from point A to point B, and later in the game there tends to be a lot of backtracking to previous locations, which is really unfortunate. It's a very linear experience, and while there are a few rooms to explore in each location, they don't tend to be far from the beaten path. The save system in the game comes in the form of emergency phones, which are dotted around various places on the map. It's essentially a checkpoint system. It's a touch old school, and I can certainly see why some people wouldn't like it, as if you die you can potentially return to the start of an area. However, this is a calculated move by Creative Assembly to try and produce tension and pleasure in the game. As you move through the level, you really feel stressed, as dying has the aforementioned frustrating consequence. Plus, the moment you reach the save point, it does actually bring genuine relief over and over again. As you move through the station, you'll quickly find friends and foes alike. There are three types of main enemies: humans, Seegson's synthetics known as the Working Joes, and of course the Xenomorph itself. Humans can be both friendly or hostile, and there's really no way to distinguish which they are. They are packed with firearms, and Ripley cannot win in a sustained firefight, particularly against multiple foes. My favourite enemy are the Working Joes. Seegson doesn't have the technology to make synthetics as advanced as Weyland-Yutani's Bishop is. They mass produce essentially a basic model that takes the form of an inhuman mannequin. These things give me the creeps, and even more so than the alien itself. In fact, they remind me of, those of you who are familiar with classic Doctor Who, they remind me of old school Doctor Who enemies called the Autons. They looked exactly like them. Working Joes are a bunch of plastic mannequins which bear blank, emotionless faces, monotone voices, and are hard to kill with conventional methods. They are bullet sponges. You can unload clips into them and they will keep coming at you. They don't run, but pursue you relentlessly with their glowing eyes, and it's really unnerving. Lastly, of course, is the iconic Xenomorph itself. Similar to the original Alien film, you'll only be against one of these terrifying beasts. The alien cannot be killed, and it will hunt you relentlessly. The only thing you can do is either hide or ward it off briefly with a flamethrower. The Alien itself is a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to its AI. It has really good qualities and some really bad qualities. The Xenomorph is attracted to any noise, and should you start running down the halls or even knock something over, it will come looking for you. This, however, can be used to your favour on occasion. Should you perhaps find yourself pinned down by humans firing at you, the alien will of course come towards the noise, and it will actually kill those human enemies too. It's often actually a good idea from stealth to throw a noisemaker into a middle of group of human enemies and just watch the gut-wrenching death that ensues. The main issue I actually have with the alien is when you're one-on-one with the creature, instead of patrolling the map as a whole, even when it has no idea where you are, it seems to actively patrol your immediate vicinity. I recall eluding the beast several times, and as I moved further across the map, it was actively moving through the area with me, but not directly pursuing me. This almost tagged patrolling feels less organic and can get quite annoying when you accidentally box yourself into a corner and suddenly find you can't get out because the alien won't leave the only exit there is. It's a real shame because the alien itself, if you get close up and it gets in melee range, you're instantly dead. Nothing you can do about it. You can't counter or anything. So it actually becomes quite frustrating, especially as you can die over and over again in the same area with the alien, and it just becomes more frustrating than it does actually scary. To deal with these array of foes, Ripley has an assortment of weapons and tools available. Be warned, however, this isn't a first-person shooter. Ammo is extremely rare and aiming is not accurate. Stealth is always the better option. By hiding, crouching and moving in the shadows to your destination, you have a much better chance at survival. As I mentioned, you do have an array of tools at your disposal as well as weapons. These comes in the form of things like EMP mines, Molotov cocktails, medkits, noisemakers, things like that. These items can all be crafted from the simplistic crafting menu with parts that you can pick up all over you around the station. The major problem overall with the game, as it is a survival horror, there just isn't that much horror in there. I would definitely call it a survival game because it's about surviving, but there isn't just that much horror. The first couple of hours, yes, you do feel quite scared as you're getting to know what things you're up against, and you first see the Xenomorph and it is quite scary as it comes at you and the way that the working Joes move. But after a while, and especially because of the way the AI works, you will die a lot, and in some areas you will die over and over again until you figure out how you can do it, and it actually becomes more frustrating than enjoyable. I mean, I can actually literally remember actually rage quitting the game because I was so frustrated at one point that I just couldn't play it. It just became unbearable. But to be fair and credit to the game, I did come back over and over again, but it shouldn't lead you to the point of having to quit the game because you're so frustrated because you keep instantly dying at the same place. Ultimately, it just shares the flaw with more survival horror games, that it becomes less scary the more you play it, and ultimately Alien Isolation isn't scary at all, even from the start. It's definitely stressful, it's definitely tense, it's definitely atmospheric, it's definitely all about surviving because you want to survive, you want to progress in the story, but it's never really scary. There aren't even that many jump scares, and the jump scares that are really good, however, because they're organic jump scares. They are things that you've created yourself. There is no set scares. The great thing about that is that, you know, if you're getting pursued by the alien and suddenly you turn around and it's there, that's because you moved in a certain way, the alien moved in a certain way, and it was organic. It just happened. You'll never get that exact same thing again, and that is something that really impressed me about the game, is that they've tried to make it, even though there are some AI elements that don't feel quite natural, there is a lot in there that does feel very natural and it flows really well, and it's ultimately about how you progress rather than the game placing certain objects in to scare you at certain times. Now, speaking of atmosphere, let's briefly talk about the visuals and the sound. The visuals are astonishing. Best looking games I have seen in a long time. The recreation of the Alien franchise, and you know, everything from the padded walls to the paraphernalia on the desks to the bobbleheads to the way the doors are to the way the computer systems are with, you know, the green DOS kind of thing. it is perfectly replicated. I in fact actually played Alien Isolation and then went and watched the original Alien film, and I could not believe how authentic the experience is. It is fantastic. The visuals are great. Everything, things like steam coming out the pipes, things like the air vents when the alien is still in the air vent and is just looking above you and it breathes that kind of steam out of its mouth, and it drools to let you know it's there. It is so fantastically looking. It creates a great atmosphere. Character models look fantastic. The whole game is just a breathtaking visual experience. Particularly the outer space scenes just look breathtaking, and I cannot fault them in terms of visuals at all. The sound again is also fantastic, and it's just so atmospheric. It really reminisces of the Alien franchise. You know, even the sounds of the movement scanner when you're trying to see where the alien is. You know, it's so authentic. It's just perfectly replicated. You know, it really does. The sound especially does bring a sense of tense atmosphere. You know, things that you can hear, things crawling in the vents above you. You know it's the alien. You can hear people moving ahead of you. You can hear the steam coming off the vents. You can hear things shifting. It's just so fantastic. The voice acting as well is also great. I have to say the characters are all very believable. They're actually very relatable as well. Interestingly enough, I actually was quite surprised because I was quite skeptical about having Amanda Ripley as the main character. I thought that it would have been better to actually take a break from Ripley and have someone else. But interestingly enough, they've actually created a character that is as good as the original Ripley. If there was to be a sequel of Alien Isolation, I would not mind seeing Ripley the younger again, because she is actually she's one of those characters that is believable to the point of, yes, I'm not going through with a machine gun and destroying everything. I'm essentially a mechanic and I'm trying to survive, and it's so believable, so well done. And in terms of audiovisual, the game has got it on the mark perfectly. Overall, in my opinion, the game is the best Alien experience you can have in a video game today. Yes, it does have some flaws. It suffers from survival horror syndrome, where the horror kind of goes out after 3-4 hours playtime. It suffers from AI issues on occasion. It suffers from being incredibly frustrating to the point I want to punch my screen, but it remains still a fantastic survival experience, if not a horror experience. It is a great Alien game, and it's just one of those things that when you watch the original Alien films, it's the closest that I feel a video game has gotten to replicating that experience when you watched Alien for the first time. And I think that the great points about it, particularly the visuals, the sound, the story, even though the story does have its issues also, particularly later on in the game. I mean, there's a couple of times where I actually thought the game was actually going to end and it was kind of wrapping up, and I was like, oh, this is the last 20-30 minutes, and then I've still got 4 hours to go, and I'm just like, why are you doing this? And you do kind of feel that at least one of those times it's pretty much trying to just extend the gameplay time for the sake of not being too short, when it didn't need to be, and it could have been a more succinct, shorter story, but a better overall experience. But that's pretty much the only issue with the story there. Overall, it is well told and well voice acted, has great characters, relatable characters, and characters that you end up actually caring about, which is the biggest point when it comes to character development in a game. You actually have to interact with your characters on an emotional level, and I feel that Alien Isolation does achieve that, which is it's a unusual thing in a lot of video games today, to actually effectively character develop to the point where you actually care not only about your main character but also about the side characters involved. So overall, I would definitely recommend picking it up if you're an Aliens fan especially, or if you're a fan of survival horror. But even those who aren't particularly fans of survival horror, it's an enjoyable story experience, so I would definitely recommend picking Alien Isolation up. If not now, then definitely on sale. And that's Alien Isolation. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Do like, subscribe, share and leave a comment if you so wish, and I will see you next time.